All right. I am here with Lee Smith, and he's an acquisition entrepreneur at Verdani Capital. How's it going, Lee?
Hey, it's great. Very good to be here, Steve.
Yeah, I'm glad we could connect. And before we unpack a lot of what we're going to talk about preparing for exits, let's talk about you. Let's talk about your background and how you got into the space.
Good. Wow. Yeah, it's 12 years ago now. I was a struggling, loosely use the term entrepreneur. I was running my own kind of small business. It was probably like the third or fourth company that I had. It was doing about 200K revenue, so it was a micro business. I thought I was Mr. Big, but it was definitely a micro business. And through the pains of trying to grow, I just thought there had to be a much smarter way out there. Came across a very, very smart guy who taught me mergers and acquisitions, and I've never looked back. It was like finding my calling at the age of 40. Yeah, it was incredible, and it's just made such a huge difference to my life. And here we are today.
Nice, very nice. So let's dive right into it. When you're assessing or doing DD or due diligence on businesses, what are some of the key things that are immediately popping out? Like what are the core things that people should look at?
That's a tough question because it depends on kind of what you're looking for, but I'll frame it because I literally just had a meeting about half an hour ago in this room I'm in London. And what I see a lot of is owners sometimes want to walk away from a business, but they are everything in that business. So for me, the biggest criteria is there other people in the company that can actually take over what you do? Because most of the time in companies that are sub 2 to 3 million, the answer is no. They are the key to the business. So how can you possibly buy it or buy 100%? Because there's no motivation for them to carry on. It's a massive risk.
So transferability. I think that
Yeah.
that word has been used a lot over the last couple of years, especially with like kind of the content creator economy businesses, where like a whole brand is built around one person. I think it's such a fascinating sort of time. So, what are some things that people could do to make their business more transferable? Like an example you gave, if they're under 2, 3 mil and they're the sole person that everything falls back on, what are some steps that they can take?
Well, either hire somebody. Okay. The kind of businesses I tend to acquire are blue collar. They're very trade specific kind of businesses. So I guess that's my expertise. But if you're in the digital space, you've got to hire somebody probably 2 to 3 years out from when you think you want to sell to kind of take over the reins of what you're doing, because otherwise it's not a true business. It's you. And if you're buying 100% of that company, then that's a massive, massive red flag if you're putting money into it, because how can you possibly acquire something when relies solely on one person? This is kind of why I tend to buy blue collar companies. There's a lot less, in my mind, it's a lot less risk.
Yeah. And how does it work? Let's dig into that a little bit, because I've met a few people in like the, HVAC, electrician, plumbing businesses, home services businesses. What are some of the things that you need to do when you're buying like a blue collar business? Is it making sure that the techs stay on, like having agreements there, or what are some key things that people need to look for?
Yeah, so this is my exact space. So I'm in the HVAC space myself. So the key thing is what we did ourselves is hire a general manager. So when I bought this business 6 years ago, it had two key directors. Again, if they were to step away, business would collapse. So I've taken on a general manager. I've now just hired a managing director from a much, much bigger company, 7 times the size of us. So he's used to. I mean, plus he's 40 years old. So the two key people in my HVAC company are over 60. So I've taken on someone who's come from a much larger company. He's in his 40s. So it's perfect. So now they want to step away in 2 to 3 years' time. Great. So now we're building that infrastructure. I've got a general manager. I've got a seasoned MD who's going to mentor the general manager. So when we go and acquire other HVAC companies, this guy can sit over the whole group. So you've really got to, I like to think of the end goal. So in 3 years' time, I want to build X. Okay, what team do I need in that 3 years? And plug it in now.
Mm.
So we've plugged in this MD who can be the MD of the whole group. So it's thinking 3 years ahead. How does it need to look like when I want to sell? What does a buyer want to see, more importantly?
Mm-hmm. And I'd love to talk a little bit about like the negotiation process when it comes to like multiples on, let's call it an HVAC business. What are some things that you're doing on the buy side to focus on negotiations there with buying?
So it's a very clear numbers game. So if you're borrowing money, the maximum we can go to is a 4 multiple maximum, but we tend to aim in the sort of 2 to 4 multiple on true profit, not EBITDA, true profit. Because if you're picking up stuff where they've adjusted the EBITDA, which is very, you probably see a lot of this where they add back the director's salaries. That's insane because someone's got to run it after you buy it. So normalized profit, we will pay a 2 to 4x. But more importantly, we like to keep people in for the long run because if we buy 60 to 80% of that company, they get a payday now, but when it's 3 years' time, we've built this much, much bigger group. They'll probably get the same, if not more again, when they exit with us for a much higher multiple because the EBIT has exploded a lot higher.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Like true profit, focusing on that. And with kind of systems, when we talk about transferability, SOPs and stuff like that apply for pretty much every business, making sure that there's processes in place. But how about the different systems that you use when you're coming in? Like you've hired a GM to manage it, a lot of this specific HVAC business we were talking about, but what are some of the systems that you use?
Are we talking, when you say systems, is it IT systems? Are you talking about business operating systems?
Just business operating systems that every entrepreneur could use, like things that could be mental models, it could be anything that you need to go in and kind of set up shop in a new business.
I use a framework called EOS, American system. I mean, there's lots of different flavors of it, but I like to use EOS as a really simple framework. It structures meetings, it structures on 2 pieces of, one piece of paper double-sided. You've got the whole vision of the company. You've got the quarter goals, you've got the 1, 3, 5 year goals, the mission statement of the business, all on one piece of paper. I like super simple.
Mm-hmm. And how do you normally structure it to like kind of align incentives with somebody that's selling? Do you do like an earn out normally? Or are you making it just part owner until they kind of vest out? Or how are you structuring it?
Yeah, we don't tend to do earnouts too much unless there's something special happened in the last 1 to 2 years that's exploded the growth. That's the only reason we would do that. So we tend to buy anywhere from 60 to 80% of the business. So the owner's not only incentivized for a proper handover, but he's incentivized with the vision that we've given them. The group we're building right now, we've got some really exciting stuff that's happening. It's looking, 100 million plus revenue with 10 to 15% bottom line. So when they come to sell the second time with us in 2 to 3 years, the multiple could have doubled by then. So that's the incentive.
Got
Plus
it.
having more fun along the way. We like to have a bit of fun.
Yeah, it's important to have some fun. So with timing, when's the right time to sell?
Well, I could tell now. Yeah, do you know what? It depends because if I look at a business and the profits look too strong, it always kind of raises a flag. So we don't mind picking up something that's maybe not had the best year, because we know we can do something with it, with our client base, with our systems, and with the personnel we have. So when's the best time? If we see something, whether it's personnel, systems, client base, we don't really care too much about the profit. We're kind of ready to buy it now.
Got
And
it.
a lot of people will hang on to a company, because they think the next year is going to be the best. That's always the one. Next year's profit. suddenly doubled from nowhere. Um, so yeah, you're wasting your life if you keep thinking the next year is always going to be the best.
Yeah. And with team, you've mentioned it a few times. You've built out a team. So when it comes to the team itself that's operating the business day to day, are you kind of going in and assessing the roles there? Are you putting people in from your team immediately? How does it work with the team itself?
I think we're quite different with this. I very much like a light touch. So I know the human psychology, people don't like change. So when
Hmm.
we acquire, the whole aim is that the next day things look exactly the same. That's as long as it's a good, sound, solid business, we don't want the next day to be any different. We only want it different from the board level and from the people at the top. Because people, you've probably come across this, people do not like any kind of change or shift in the business. So we like to come in after 3 to 6 months and after we've acquired and then say, right, we've got, these set of suggestions that we think. So it's very, very, kind of hands-off, light touch approach. We're
Yeah.
genuinely buying something because we know there's a certain element of it that will benefit the wider group in in 3 years.
Yeah, that makes sense to just really kind of ease into it. And when it comes to concentration risk, I think that I'm always fascinated by the different types of industries and different businesses that assess concentration risk differently. But with like blue collar sort of service based businesses, how do you look at concentration risk with, like let's say a big enterprise is a certain percentage of their revenue? What can you share around tips for people that are looking at the kind of different customer percentages?
Yeah, interesting because there's actually two deals I'm looking at the moment where one of them has a 63% concentration of their revenue with one client.
Whew.
And the other one, yeah, it's pretty similar actually, about 60-70% of the concentration. So we'll still give them a decent valuation, but the multiple would probably be around about a 3 multiple in that scenario.
Hmm.
But more importantly, in the SPA, the sale and purchase agreement, we would have a key customer clause. So if for any reason that key customer was to leave in the deferred period, then that would reduce the price. So if there was, let's say, I don't know, £1 million deferred over the next 3 years and that key client left, then that would be reduced to the amount of the risk of that client.
Hmm. Makes
So
sense.
again, another incentive for the founder to keep that relationship going, to keep that customer going. So not only have they've got equity stake, they've got a clause there that will keep the fire under their toes.
Got it. So let's talk about the biggest mistakes during the deal. I think
Oh
that
God.
these are always my favorite ones because there's so many moving parts when stuff like this happens, where you're coming in, you're working on terms together, the owners are trying to operate at the same time of working with the buyer. And having been on both sides of this myself, I know just the chaotic sort of psychological backflip that it takes. So what kind of mistakes have you personally gone through while buying? I think it's a really interesting piece. It doesn't have to be specifics or anything like that around the individual business, but I'm just fascinated by the pitfalls of doing this.
Um, I think one of the early mistakes I made was buying a company out of administration. I'm not sure if many people on this channel do that, but I bought a company out of administration. I definitely highly advise against that. I won't be doing that one again. And then another one I did was around the due diligence phase. Now we didn't end up closing on the deal because literally 30 minutes before closing, we were on a call with the lawyers and we discovered that the vendor had effectively given 15% stake of the company to the general manager without telling us. And I've never seen this one before. It was actually in his employment agreement. he was given 15% of the net profit of the business. Now, we were coming in and buying 80% of that company. No, sorry, 100% of this business. But effectively, by him changing the employment agreement, which was only disclosed 7 days before on a weekend, that he had given 15% stake. Now, bloody hell, this is this is a massive red flag. If you're buying 100% and someone puts in an employment agreement, it's very, very hard to come back on that with employment law.
Mm-hmm.
But apart from that, I think they've been the biggest mistakes. The biggest one I've actually made is choosing the wrong partner.
Mm.
So on acquisition, we've actually been quite lucky. I would say lucky because we're quite good on the due diligence.
Mm.
But yeah, the biggest problems have probably been those ones and actually choosing the wrong partner.
Mm. And by partner, do you mean like the funding side, or what do you mean by business partner?
Acquisition partner.
Okay. Okay. So like the person that's going to be diving into the deal, helping throughout, but any stories that you can share there about why that was a mistake?
Oh God. Well, I learned from somebody. I think it might have been Keith Cunningham when I flew over to Texas a few years ago, and he said, "Become the son the vendor never had." And on this particular deal, it was just over £1 million profit business, and I was going to the initial meeting, and then this guy that I knew, we got on quite well, called me in the morning. I said, "Well, why don't you come along to this meeting? I'm meeting a company. I'd like to do business with you. Why don't you come along?" Anyway, we ended up buying this business. I gave him 50%, so 50-50 straight down the line. Number one mistake, which I would advise against in the future. Somebody should always have ultimate responsibility. And it was a really weird situation. I don't know what his upbringing was, but the actual vendor ended up, in my mind, becoming the father he never had. It was really bizarre situation. So I ended up selling my shares back in that business last year for far less than I thought I was going to get for it, just to get away from the toxic situation that had built up. So it should have been a £9 million exit, £4.5 million each. And I ended up just giving the shares away for almost nothing, just to get away from the toxic situation that I was involved in. And that was the biggest lesson I've had in 12 years. And I'm actually grateful for it, because now I'm looking for even bigger, better deals. I've even got a better business partner now. And I structure everything and teach people not to make that kind of mistake when choosing a business partner. You have to be really careful. There's some crazy people out there, and you don't discover that until money's involved.
That's right. That's right. Money definitely changes a lot of personality pretty
Yes.
quick when it's on the table, for sure. So with timeline, how long has been, let's say, the shortest DD and then longest? What's been the timeline for those?
Probably 1 hour. Buying distressed one. I've bought a lot of companies, probably about 20 businesses for £1. So in a
Whoa.
lot of those situations, no proper DD was done. It was
Wow.
just my initial DD, knowing what the business did, knowing what kind of risks there were for me. So yeah, it was literally just have a meeting, sign right there and then.
Wow.
The company over. So some of those were really exciting.
Whoa.
Um,
I got to learn more about that. That's crazy. So in in that situation, is somebody just like there is a, what do they call it, the 4Ds, where it's like a death, divorce, there's a bunch of different issues, but a distressed situation, like what would cause somebody to sell a business for £1?
okay, so I'll give you this example of, I met this absolutely beautiful lady. She was a real professional in let's call it the property sector. So she had built up about £500,000 worth of debt in this business. And HMRC, which is the UK's equivalent of the IRS,
Mm-hmm.
was asking her to sign a bond, which effectively meant that any money she made in the future was basically going to them. So I said, look, let me come in and save your business, because I'd already kind of looked at her numbers and thought I had a way to save this. So within 2 weeks, she had signed over 40% stake of the company to us. Within 4 weeks, we had set up a new entity for her, moved her customers over legally using some kind of clever maneuvers. And within those 4 weeks, she had a fresh entity with no debt. That 500K had gone away. It was sitting in the other entity. And 7 months later, we sold that 40% back to her for, a
Wow.
low six figure sum. And that was probably that was a real wake up moment that, hey, shit, you can do some real good in this world.
Yeah.
She was
Yeah.
stressed, £500,000 worth of debt. So in 7 months, she had her company back doing the same revenue, no debt. And we'd made, a decent six figures.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So that's a remarkable example, and I guess with the ones where it took an hour to to sign over,
Yeah.
that's like running from the police or something, or I don't even know how that's possible.
Yeah, this is another lesson. This was manufacturing. So, yeah, I definitely would never buy another distressed manufacturing company unless I had a healthy manufacturing company alongside it. So
Uh,
that was in the lesson column.
so they were distressed. How so? Like another debt situation where they'd taken on too much and
Yeah, they didn't really have enough. It was kind of doing 700,000 revenue, which really wasn't enough for the overheads of the manufacturing business. So they were
Mhm.
struggling to pay salaries. They had debt. They were talking to insolvency people. So that was one of those ones where I drove like 2 hours, signed, sealed, delivered in that meeting. And then for the next kind of 2 years, it was like, holy shit, what did I buy?
That's wild. That is a wild one. So for people listening to this that are even first time sellers, first time buyers, I think that it's important to kind of take the best step forward. What are some ways that they can build trust? Because this is all based on trust. Like somebody selling for, £1 isn't really buying into trust, but that woman that you helped with sort of sidestepping the disastrous debt situation, what are some ways that you can build trust on both sides?
Um, well, I don't try and be anything other than who I am. So I try and be really transparent with people. I use the formula two ears, one mouth. So I listen. I like to listen to the kind of pain points they're going through, and really I structure deals to fix their pain points. I'm not coming in with any kind of ego. I'm not coming in with any kind of set strategy. So if someone's sitting across me and I don't think it aligns, then I'll walk away. So for me, it's finding out more about the human that's sitting opposite me.
Hmm.
What is it they're going through? If they're not going through any problems and they just want to retire, then is there something I can do to fix the situation they're in? If I can't, then I'll walk away. But more often than not, I can help them. So it's humanizing it. It's
Hmm.
sitting one on one, really listening in and actually caring about that individual and trying to find a win-win situation. I'm not trying to screw anybody over. So yeah, that's for me. It's a really simple approach. I treat it as a casual conversation and really finding out whether there's something I can do to help that person get to where they want to, and we can find a way that works for us as well. Simple,
Nice.
very simple.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Just because it is a lot of times people get lost in the numbers, they get lost in the P&L, but in reality it's a human. Like you're literally just talking to another human, and I like that it's boiling it down to that. It's just like you mentioned that woman was super stressed out, and a lot of this is just deep psychological kind of craziness on the sell
Yeah.
side for sure. So just being sort of empathetic and simple about the approach is really powerful.
You
Really
can,
powerful.
yeah, it's very easy to overcomplicate things.
Yeah, for sure. So knowing what you know now, what would you tell Lee 10 years ago?
Oh my God. I'd probably love to replay what I've just said to my 10 years ago. Just chill out. It will all be okay. Just put one step forward every day and everything will work out fine. I was probably a bit like a rabbit in a headlight trying to build a £100 million group when I was just starting out, and just one step forward, keep learning every day. And, as long as probably the best thing I've learned is that whole piece around ego and ethics. It's very easy to say, but after 12 years now, I think just the simple approach works best.
Hmm.
Don't try and don't just try and build something for the sake of it. It's just numbers. At the end of the day, it's just numbers. Figure out why do you want to build a £100 million group? What's the purpose? Do you really need a £100 million group? No, it's just that's the ego speaking. So think about what is the actual root of what that £100 million group will actually deliver for you. And then you'll kind of realize, well, you could do that with 10 million.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't have to be this grand thing. Of course, if you have grand desires and you want a private jet, great, go out and do it. But sometimes you don't always need it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. The concept of enough is a
Yes.
big hurdle that I know a lot of people that struggle with, where eventually it just becomes chasing that net worth number to no end, basically. Like you forget to
Yeah.
enjoy and take a beat. I have found that with kids myself, two little kids, that helps a lot with like focusing on enough and making sure that you're actually maximizing for fun and happiness in life. But a lot of people, especially in this space, specifically get lost in chasing just these numbers, and then once they hit it, it's just the next one. Human
Yeah.
sort of progression is never going to stop. Like you're always just going to kind of keep going until you try to define that enough number or enough kind of resources, I guess you could say. But really well
Yeah.
said.
Yeah, and if you just focus on the numbers, then it just becomes a kind of game of greed. Whereas I
Yeah.
treat it as a kind of spiritual practice.
Yeah.
That's why, like Jim Rohn's, my favorite quote of all time is Jim Rohn's: "Become a millionaire for what it will make of you, not for the money." I
Hmm.
love that. I love
Hmm.
that. All of my mistakes have made me a better person.
Well said. Well, those are all the questions I have for you. What are you working on right now, and where can people learn more about you?
Yeah, so right now is really exciting. I've managed to, it's taken a long time, but now I've got three amazing kind of operators around me. We're in three sectors in the UK. So we're in IT services like MSP, cybersecurity, HVAC, and construction. So I've got three amazing people who are ready and hungry for me to roll in new deals. So yeah, the pipeline I know I said don't focus on numbers, but the pipeline we've got on at the moment is insane, like 60 companies. So we just want 10% of those to close. And we'll have a really nice kind of group that will enable people to have kind of a platform for personal growth. And
Hmm.
really exciting, we're now rolling in kind of EMI share schemes. This is a UK specific thing where I want every employee in our businesses to have a share in the companies.
Hmm.
So yeah, very exciting time right now. And yeah, and if anyone wants to reach out, my website is leesmith.me.
Very cool. Very cool. Wherever you guys are listening on iTunes or Spotify, the links that Lee mentioned will be in the show notes.